Now to a CBS Investigators exclusive. A judge running from our questions about the bad warrant he signed, giving Chicago police the power to raid an innocent family's home. It's one of dozens of bad search warrants judges are rubber stamping with no proof police got it right. Here's CBS 2 investigator Dave Savini with the part of the wrong raid story you haven't yet heard.
Judge Araujo, why are you running?
The man wearing the fedora and trench coat running from our questions.
Judge, we just want to talk to you about all the negative warrants you signed.
Is the Cook County judge who signed the bad warrant to raid this woman's home.
I didn't know if they were police officers or if they were somebody just ambushing my house to rob me. There were some of them that had masks on their face.
It was February 2018. Mary Ann Sparr's house was ransacked. The emotional damage even worse.
The one police officer looked at me and said, "Shut your face before I handcuff you and slam your face to the floor."
Mary Ann's children were terrorized. Her 16-year-old son was upstairs asleep in his bed.
A police officer jumped on his bed, put a gun to his head, and said, "Don't you move, I'll shoot you in your head."
Meanwhile, she says her daughter, who has a disability, was naked in the bathroom.
The male officer flung the door open as she was getting out of the bathtub. It's terrible that my daughter was violated that way in her home. She doesn't even feel safe to be home alone.
The man you see running is Judge Mauricio Araujo. He was supposed to make sure police had enough proof of criminal activity before giving the officers the power to raid her home.
They came in your home, they searched the rooms, they ransacked everything, they broke things, and then they left.
Correct.
Nobody arrested?
Nope, nothing.
Another bad raid.
Search warrant, Chicago police!
Just like the bad raids all these families suffered, whose stories we've been telling over the past 2 years.
Chicago police! Get down!
In each case, we uncovered judges signing search warrants full of holes.
Please do not show me.
The only so-called facts coming from confidential informants who often get paid for tips or are criminals looking to cut a deal.
Chicago police, search warrant!
One of those warrants, based only on an informant's word, led to this traumatizing wrong raid on the Mendez family. The day before, cops had caught a man with drugs on the street and turned him into an informant to find more drugs.
They live upstairs. They live upstairs.
But the informant's tip was wrong, and the warrant shows officers didn't do anything to verify it. No surveillance, nothing. Yet another Cook County judge rubber-stamped it, signed it without any corroborating evidence. The city got sued, and the officer who got the warrant had this to say during a deposition with the Mendez family attorney.
Did Judge ask you any questions about your complaint for search warrant or any of the information in your complaint?
No.
Judges are supposed to see the red flags, make sure there's credible evidence of a crime, and protect the rights of citizens like these families from having their homes wrongfully raided.
When we see data like what you're describing, it does give pause and it gives concern that there is a systemic issue there.
Sharon Fairley is a former federal prosecutor and former head of COPA, the Civilian Office of Police Accountability. She says judges really need to make sure police independently investigate and verify informant tips.
When someone's getting paid for something, right, then they have an incentive, right, to give law enforcement the information that they think that the law enforcement wants to hear.
Which is why she says the judge's role is critical. They're the only thing that stands between police and your front door, protecting your Fourth Amendment rights against illegal search and seizure.
As the sort of gatekeeper, the judge should be looking for that additional corroborative evidence.
Judge, can you answer a couple questions for me? I just want to know why you've signed off on so many search warrants.
Which brings us back to Judge Araujo. Our CBS 2 investigative team tried to catch up with him about Mary Ann Sparr's raid and all of the other bad warrants he signed.
Come on, Judge, these families depended on you.
Officer Banian Chinchilla got Judge Araujo to approve the Sparr warrant, once again based solely on the tip of an informant. And there appear to be a lot of bad tips. In fact, the most recent CPD data turned over to us shows the vast majority of all search warrants signed by judges target drugs. In 95% of those raids, they came up empty. A dismal success rate, calling into question whether some judges are simply rubber-stamping warrants based on the word of a John Doe.
Just the whole process is corrupted.
Attorney Ed Fox sued the city on behalf of the Sparr family.
Police knew this was a judge that they could go to anytime.
They went to him a lot.
And police data we uncovered backs that up. Our CBS 2 investigators found Judge Arujo was Officer Chinchilla's go-to judge for search warrants, signing more than half of Chinchilla's 98 warrants during a 3-year period. Chicago police data also reveals Judge Arujo signed more warrants than any other judge, 1,166 in 3 years. No other judge comes close.
Judge shopping?
Yes, that's where you go to a judge where you feel comfortable. You're more likely to get the warrant that you want.
To make matters worse, no one in the court system is keeping track of how often cops, their informants, and judges get it wrong.
Judge!
And that takes our chase from the streets of Chicago to South America. It was Judge Arujo who had to testify about these 2 disgraced cops and all the warrants he signed that they used to raid and rob people. Officer David Salgado and Sergeant Xavier Elizondo were convicted. At their trial, Judge Arujo confirmed all 3 of them went to Salgado's bachelor party in Colombia.
Judge Arujo! These families depended on you to protect them.
I feel so bad that my children had to go through that. I mean, you traumatized my children, violated my family.
The city settled this Barr family lawsuit. After Judge Arujo's bad warrants with the 2 officers were exposed, the chief judge changed the system, randomly assigning judges to sign warrants. But CPD's data still shows some judges signing more than others, and we found still no one tracks the judges who signed bad warrants. One day after we tried questioning Arujo, he resigned. At the time, he was also on trial for unrelated misconduct complaints by the State Judicial Inquiry Board. Dave Savini, CBS 2 Investigators.
Thank you, Dave. You can read up on Dave's award-winning investigations into repeated bad raids by Chicago police. Head to cbschicago.com/unwarranted.